So Andrew, you and I have gone to quite a few haunted houses over the years. Gone to some giant ones as well as some smaller scale stuff.
Correct.
And it's probably around 2016, I think, that Andrew and I visited your home haunt.
Yes.
Which was it Lincoln Park at the time?
Yes. My parents' house.
Okay.
Yes.
And what one was that called in 2016?
So every year I did a different theme. That year in 2016, I decided to do the Boogeyman.
Okay.
So the outside was kind of like a closet. It's like you were going into a closet and into the Boogeyman realm. And I started out with like clothes. You push like clothes out of the way, and it was just kind of old worldy, retro kind of vibes, sounds, imagery, and just kind of a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I remember it had like a specific feel to it. Felt definitely like old school.
Mm-hmm.
Like, was there like a certain year set you were going for that? Like, was there a certain era or year you were trying to represent with that haunt?
I tend to always drift towards like retro 70s, 60s, 70s. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I think a lot of like horror movies, because a lot of horror movies were made in like the 70s and the 80s.
Right, like the original stuff.
To me, my mind is like that's when things were scary, and now nothing's scary in the 2000s or the 1990s. Who cares?
Yeah.
Nothing's scary.
Right.
Nothing's old or decrepit. It's just, hey, let's go to the Victorian mansion. Let's go to like the old lake from the 70s. That's when stuff was scary. So I think I always drift towards that kind of aesthetic, that vibe, that feel.
Yeah, Andrew, do you have any memories of going through his? Just even how like the whole night played out?
I remember it was like at the side of his house, and you'd go, because it was like a gate you entered and then exited out of like another gate or something like that. I remember it was really cool because it was one of the first times, I'm pretty sure I had seen a flickering TV. So I think there was like a flickering something.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're remembering it better than I am. I'm now trying to.
I remember the clothes too, like entering through the clothes. I thought that was super cool because I think it really fit the aesthetic well of what you were going for. I think that was also the night. That was just the night where we went to a couple different home haunts.
Yeah, I think so. I think that was our last stop. Was your house. We had gone to a couple before that, and
I think we
went
went down
there
to 2 or 3 because there was the one in the garage where you took the same route to go to like the big scare in the middle.
Yep.
And worked your way out, and the scares were a little different on their way out, which I thought was a super cool idea.
Yeah.
And then I think we went to another one.
Or did we go to I think we might have went to another like professional haunt that night. I think it was called Abandoned. It was in like a laser tag place.
Oh gosh.
But it was kind of like a blackout maze, and since then it's been abandoned.
Yeah, I think so. Actually, yeah, I think you're right. God, that was so long ago.
Yeah. Yeah, 2016 feels like forever ago.
And then we went to Adams, and I remember really liking Adams.
Yeah.
Even though it was just, I think, Adam working the front, and then your friend Adam, our friend Adam, because he's our friend now, was the boogeyman, and I think Arthur was there too. Because I think it was just you 3, and it was just
I think
small.
They were both in it. Adam and Arthur. Were
Yeah.
And it just took. It was maybe 2 to 2 minutes, if that.
One more person.
Yeah, I think there were.
The boogeyman was no. Arthur was the boogeyman.
Arthur.
Yes.
Okay.
Arthur was the boogeyman. Adam was
tall guy.
Something else that I can't remember. Not the boogeyman. I think he might have been in the sheet room.
Yes, I remember
that. Got everybody. It was just a couple. I didn't even make mannequins. It's just I put a spike in the ground, put a styrofoam head on it, and put a sheet over it, and it fooled everybody.
Obviously, what we saw was extremely impressive. Like I was blown away by like how much theming went into a backyard haunted attraction.
Thank you.
But I'm sure you had like a process leading up to that, like with different haunts that probably weren't to that scale.
Mm-hmm.
Like how did you get started in doing home haunts at all? Like what really inspired that to begin with, and what was your first home haunt, if you remember?
So this kind of goes back to 2005, 2004. There was a house that had just a front yard full of random mannequins, and it was every year they did something, added something, made it bigger, and I don't know what it was that clicked in my head. Like I want to do that, and because I didn't have a job, I was too young, and I might have had a job. I think I was just too poor. Couldn't afford anything. I asked my parents if I could do something in the front yard. My father's a little on the conservative side, so Halloween's a little bit of a touchy subject for him, so I was like, what can I do?
Yeah.
And he's like, you can put some gravestones out. And
right.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I took some cardboard, cut up some cardboard. Surprisingly, did not last very long.
Yeah.
Because, rain does a funny thing to cardboard.
Yeah, you learn pretty quickly how the weather can have an effect on your Halloween decorations.
Oh, yeah. So that was 2005.
Okay.
And then 2006, I kind of did the same thing, but a little more elaborate. I always trying to set a goal where I would outdo myself the next year and the next year and the next year. And I enclosed the front porch.
Okay.
In a tarp. Actually, no, not even a tarp. The scene setters, you might remember them. They still exist. Scene setters.
Oh, yeah.
From like Spirit Halloween or
like
when it was
plastic tablecloth material of like stone or brick. Yeah.
Very thin. And I would just duct tape the whole thing.
Probably don't hold up to wind very well.
Better than cardboard boxes in the rain. Yeah, and so in 06, I did enclose the porch, made some more cardboard structures.
Yeah.
Didn't last, but they made it to Halloween, and that's all I cared about.
Yeah.
And I was like, do I want to go trick or treating, or do I want to stay home and try to scare kids? And I'm like, definitely scare kids.
How old were you at that time?
So I would be 17.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so it's kind of like that age where you start aging out of trick-or-treating.
Yes.
Where it becomes that point where it's like, is it socially acceptable? Get people, where it's just like,
right.
Where's your little sibling at? Like,
probably then.
Yeah.
Probably right then and there. I was like, I could be scaring people. It's not as it's kind of frowned upon when you're going around the neighborhood in a costume and you're scaring people.
Yeah.
One, you just get a bunch of weird looks.
Right.
Two, it's like, well, yeah, everybody's dressed, so like.
Yeah.
Everyone's anticipating it.
Yeah.
So what if I just do it at my house and just scare people at my house?
Yeah. So it was more of like a cemetery theme to start? Was that like, did you always have a theme, or was it kind of off the walls where you're like, oh, here's a cemetery with clowns and an industrial shack, or was it all pretty much themed for you throughout?
I think everything kind of just drifts towards cemeteries.
Yeah.
It's like that's the most Halloween thing you
Right.
can think of. Cemeteries, ghosts, goblins.
Yeah.
So the first 2 years, were cemetery, general cemetery skeleton kind of feel. But it was in 2007 that I think was probably the nexus point for really taking things another step further. And I borrowed a friend of mine's car canopy that they took down for the end of the year.
Gotcha.
And this is former friend David, his brother's Craig. And I was like, hey, can I borrow your guys' canopy and enclose it in tarp? Like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I bought a bunch of tarps and just made a tarp maze on the inside. It wasn't too big, it wasn't too short. But what had led to that point in particular was I went to an event, I heard about an event in Orlando at Universal Studios called Halloween Horror Nights. I saw a video, which was in 2016. They did an event where they had all of their, what they called icons. So every year at Halloween Horror Nights, they had an icon, a character that kind of brought all of the houses and the theme of that year together. So they had a director one year, a caretaker, a storyteller, and the first icon they ever made was a clown, and his name was Jack the Clown. Anybody in the haunt industry knows this person's name. I'd never heard of him. It invented him in the year 2000, and for their 16th event, their 16th year, was their Sweet 16 Horror Comes Home. And they had a stage show that they did every night that they were open, where all of the icons would do an elaborate kill revolving around their character, attributes about their character. So it started with it started with the director. He electrocuted somebody in a bathtub. The storyteller ripped somebody's tongue out. The caretaker ripped a guy's heart out of his chest.
Okay.
And then it came to Jack. He was the last one. And I think that was the point where I'm like, I think I want to do this forever, for the rest of my life.
So that was kind of like the main inspiration for you.
Yes.
Was Universal's
Big.
Horror Nights, and that's what...
They just wheeled out this humongous blender and
but you had been doing stuff before then.
Oh, yeah.
And that just kind of
It was just
blew it
that.
out of
That I was
proportion,
like
that's when-
blown
yeah.
away. Like, how could an amusement park do something like this?
Yeah.
They just blended a person in a giant balloon.
Yeah, right.
It's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, right.
So I kind of looked into it more, and the next year Jack was back as the icon again, and I'm like, okay, I'm 18 at the time. I'm going to go down to Florida on my own with my friend, and we're going to go to the event and see what it's like. And I did.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I was hyped up that whole year. So leading up to that, I kind of made my decision that I was going to do my backyard haunt in my parents' backyard with the canopy and theme it to, well, Jack the Clown.
So that was your first, like, I guess, maze, you would call it.
That was the start of the backyard mazes.
Gotcha.
So from that point on, I just always did something in the backyard. And I was like, okay, Halloween Horror Nights, they change it up every year. I'm going to change it up every year.
Yeah, I
So
think
what
that's
did it-
important to do with any
Absolutely.
type of
Yeah.
entertainment attraction where it's like if you do the same thing over and over,
Get stale.
it gets stale real quick. So,
I was just gonna say, I remember. I'm not gonna name names, but there's one place
yeah,
that I went to, and 5 years later, I went to it again, and it was the exact same. And I said,
yeah,
"Huh,
yeah,
this is
right.
boring."
Yeah, it kind
Uh,
of takes a little bit out of it where it's like you want something new, you want something exciting,
Yeah.
exciting, especially if it's a place where you went to where it was the first time. And you're like, wow, this is so overwhelming and so cool.
Yeah,
Like you want to, you kind of always want to chase that feeling of I want this to be
Mhm.
super new and exciting every time.
Yeah, because if you just do the same thing all the time, you kind of get caught in this rut of, well, I think people expect the same scares. Oh, look, it's him again.
Right.
Ooh, I know what he's going to do.
It's kind of the same thing if you see like the same horror movie multiple
Yeah.
times, where it's like if there's one that's really good that's your favorite, you can still find enjoyment out of it.
Sure.
But after about, you go through it 4 or 5 times and it's the same thing, you're like, well, I know where the scares are. I'm not
Yep.
going to jump. It kind of
Yep.
takes a bit away from the adrenaline aspect of
Exactly.
the horror element to it.
Exactly. You need
So-
a sequel. You
Yeah.
need prequels.
Yeah, so when you did your next maze, was it also themed to Jack the Clown or was it completely fresh and new? Like,
Yes.
did you just build on it or did you do totally new?
I think I didn't use the canopy,
Okay.
but I said I'm going to bake my own walls and kind of stay to the concrete pad that my parents had in the backyard. And not a lot of room. So
Yeah.
it wasn't necessarily a very long maze. It was maybe 3 minutes to go through total.
Yeah,
Which, if you're going trick-or-treating,
right.
it's a nice short little thing to go through and
yeah.
bring the kids. Except, when there's 300 people in line. And
Yeah. Well, that was my thing with trick-or-treating was like when there were those houses that went out, it was really like they went all out to do everything. It was really cool.
Yeah.
But then sometimes, just how much I chased the candy, I was just like, this is eating up 2 or 3 minutes. I could have hit like 6 or 7
Yeah.
houses. Like, I got to go. Like, this is
Yeah,
great.
That is-
But I got to get to my candy.
I would usually tell people, hey, people come up to me, they'd be, hey, can you hurry things up? And I'm like, why don't you go trick-or-treating first and then come to the
back
haunt?
at the end of the night. Yeah. We'll
Yeah.
still be here. And
We'll be here and we'll be open. Usually on like the weekends, it worked out perfectly
yeah,
because kids could stay out as long as they wanted, for the most part.
roughly. Yeah.
Curfews.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stupid.
So after the Jack the Clown inspired maze,
Yeah.
what was the next one that you did?
What was my next? I really can't remember. I think it was a toxic theme.
Okay.
Yes. And that was like biohazard, kind of like you're going through a compound that was in the middle of a contamination leak.
Okay.
And that was, again, nothing too big, nothing too elaborate. Well, elaborate for me at the time. And I always had people enter through the side, on the inside of our property on one side of the gate. And they just kind of followed a short little path, almost the reverse of what I did the second year.
Gotcha.
And it was the first year I bought a laser, which like the one we use in the forest.
Oh, yeah.
That I
Yeah.
think might be broke.
It was in the tree.
It was in the tree. I've seen it on the ground.
Yeah.
But yeah, I bought that. That was like my first big, whoa, this is like a
Right.
crazy purchase. Well, holy crap.
Right.
And I shot it down the walkway that people would come through, and it was supposed to be like a decontamination
Yeah.
tunnel. and I fogged it out, and the lasers, and that, oh man, lasers.
Yeah.
Luckily, nobody got blinded, thankfully.
You know of.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. But that was a cool experience. And then I think the next year we did a maze based on fears, phobias.
So with that one being based on phobias, was that more just kind of playing into a little bit of everything, where you're like, oh, here's bugs, here's clowns, here's
general
a doctor? Yeah. So,
we had like.
So that was probably a little less theming throughout the whole thing.
Yeah. Yes.
Or so you have that overlying theme, but it's not every little thing is tied into that.
Yeah, that's why I try to stick to like an overall theme. Nothing generic, because you go to any most haunts, and I'd say probably 80% of haunts don't really have a theme per se. It's just what scares people.
Right.
Dark hallways, blood, satanic symbols.
Yeah.
Multi-guy in a barrel.
Yeah, right.
Banging on the walls, that kind of stuff. General stuff. But I liked what Halloween Horror Nights did, was stick to a theme, a cohesive theme, follow it out. Make a storyline. Why not? It might be 3 minutes, but it's a 3-minute story.
Right.
You enter through a thing, there's a beginning, a middle, and a conclusion.
Yeah.
That's what I like to do every year. So after that, the phobia was not necessarily my idea. It was my friend at the time, his idea was, well, let's do phobias. Each room is a different phobia, and a doctor who's making all these people go through the phobia. Okay, yeah, sounds good on paper, except not everybody's scared of the same phobias, so...
Very true, yeah.
It can be kind of like a hit or miss with some people.
Right. Hopefully at least you have one of the phobias in one of the areas that hits each person, I guess is kind of the goal you probably...
But I made everybody scared as the clown. And I think everybody's scared as clowns.
Yeah,
everybody.
I don't understand that fear, personally. I'm like,
I
clowns have never scared me.
I think it's just ingrained in our DNA.
Like, I'm fine with it, though. Like, I'm fine with clowns. Like,
I dress as a clown sometimes.
For some reason, it's like this big thing where it's like, there's just people that just can't handle clowns. Like, we were at we did a convention as a part of Deranged recently. We had one of our actors there that was a clown. You know, there were celebrities there as well. And the celebrities, I think it was their assistant, was like terrified. You know, this celebrity had worked in, horror series stuff, and their assistant, just at the presence of our clown, who was not even interacting with him, was just completely freaked out. Like, we need you to go away right now. We're like,
some people
it's one of those things where I just
touch
don't
them.
really
can't
understand.
Touch them with a 10-foot pole.
No, I don't get it.
But I guess one way to guarantee a scare is just do a theme with clowns. I hate to say I think it's overdone.
Oh yeah,
but
absolutely.
It's like, if you want to scare people, you have to have clowns.
And that's something we've done pretty unique at Deranged. I don't know if it's been talked about before, but the theme nights with the clown night.
Yeah, that is true.
That is something different, I think, and something fun where we all get to be clowns.
Right. For one, everybody wants to be a clown. Like, as an actor, it's a fun role to take on.
Yeah.
And then realistically, we are all clowns.
Yeah, right. You can be silly. It's easy to scare people as a clown.
Disgusting.
Yeah, disgusting. There's so many different characteristic traits that you can portray when you are a clown.
Yeah.
It makes it really easy to just be like, oh, I'm just going to be a clown real quick. And it doesn't really take too much deep diving into like a character backstory.
No.
So it's like that's always fun to do with theme nights, where it's just like, cool, like everybody's going to get a night off from, what they typically do. And we're just going to dress everybody up as a clown, and everybody's going to go out there and have a great time.
That was one of the most fun nights, I think, on the year of Deranged.
Yeah.
Was our first clown theme night.
Yeah.
Because we just all got to be weird and fun and,
right.
be clowns.
Yeah, and especially now that we're like, we're pushing that story element that we didn't always have there.
Yeah.
We're starting to incorporate it more and more.
Yeah.
Those theme nights are a nice little break from that, where you're like, oh, here I'm this character that I'm trying to portray this story while also scaring people. And it's nice to just kind of just shut your mind off and just be like, I'm going to go be a clown and climb a wall and honk a horn,
Yeah.
But I mean, that's definitely one of the biggest phobias, especially in just haunted houses in general. Like, I don't think anything else, it's like for some people it's spiders, like our friend Aaron, for some people it's snakes, there's all these little fears, but I don't think anything really hits as much as clowns do.
Yeah.
No.
I'm usually excited when there's not clowns.
Yeah, you get to that point.
I remember the last big haunt I went to. You remember? We went down the first time I went to it, and I was like, "Please let there be no clowns in here."
Yeah, it just gets.
I don't get scared at a haunt. I just like to immerse myself in the environment. That's what I'm about.
So after that year of doing all the phobias, where did your home hunt go from there? You went back to a specific theme after the phobias?
I think I called it the Void.
Okay.
So this was like kind of like the Hellraiser movies. More like kind of like dark void, creepy dimension of fear.
Okay.
And you were encountering the denizens of that
Okay,
kind of fear.
yeah.
And this was the first time I expanded the path that people took. We had a gazebo in the backyard.
Okay.
So I was like, well, I started wrapping the front porch, and that's how that started.
Yeah.
What's a gazebo? Let's wrap a gazebo. So we wrapped the gazebo up, made it pitch black, and I was kind of like a summoner, like almost like a dark priest, summoning people into
Okay.
this void. And it was basically pitch black minus some rooms that were dimly lit just enough to tell what you were like knocking into. And then I wanted the end scared to be like this rush of lights and sound just in your face at the last second right as you exit.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of haunts do that where it's like a big crescendo event.
Right.
It's like a
Yeah.
wow, big
Yeah.
thing at the end.
I mean, I think that's definitely the way to end it, and it's kind of similar in like the structure of it to like a fireworks show, the 4th of July, where it's like you need that grand finale
Yes.
to really just bring it home and tie
Yes.
everything together. So when you did the Void, about what year was that? Were
Oh,
you
man.
still?
So
I mean,
let's see.
all these were at your parents' house, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, was that something that your parents were like, "Yay, we're doing a haunted house," or was it something where you kind of had a fight to get that extra space when you expanded the trail?
Yeah, my dad was never too
Never-
happy about
yeah.
it. But my mom, she warmed up to it over time.
Yeah.
Because what she liked was the kids around the neighborhood would come out, and she would always make some kind of treat. It wasn't just candy that she handed out.
Yeah.
A lot of the times she would rent a popcorn maker or a cotton candy machine.
Oh, gotcha.
So she would try to theme the food
That's
to
awesome.
whatever I was doing that year. So that was like my way of getting her into it, and I think
Yeah.
she kind of slowly warmed up to it. And when I would be at work around like September, when I would start building, usually people would come up to her on the street. They'd be like, "Are you guys doing your haunt again this year?" And
Yeah.
she'd be like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
It's always like reluctance at first, but then when things start to come together, then she got excited and the kids showed up and she'd be like, "That was a fun night." And I'm like, "We're going to do it again next year then."
Yeah.
Then my dad was like, "Oh, but you stomped all the grass
Yeah.
down." The grass would become
It was
a
the same
mess.
thing.
That's what your dad did. That
Yeah,
was-
my dad was always complaining about it. It was always a fight every year where it's like first you started as the tarps, and it's like, oh, we're gonna put a tunnel in the driveway, and then it's like eventually we took it to the backyard, and
Yep.
it's like you're killing all the grass. Like,
Yeah. Grass comes back.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's fine.
So-
And it always came back.
Yeah. So after the Void, you continued doing it. I mean,
Yes.
how many years of the home hunt did you have altogether at your parents' house?
I remember the last one I did was like, it was like a number. It was like a big number. I think it was 10.
Okay.
So I think it was like 10 years. So yeah, okay. 06 in 2006 and then to 2016.
Okay.
So 10 years. I
Gotcha.
did.
And the Void was around 2010,
I think
2011
that
probably.
was 2012 or I think it was 2012
Okay.
because I remember everyone's hysteria that year was the Mayan calendar ending.
Yeah,
in
yeah, the world's
December.
coming to an end.
So
yeah.
it was like the Void. It's the end of
yeah,
time.
perfect
Oh,
play on that.
no.
Yeah. So how did you follow that up? As we all learned, the world didn't actually end in 2012. So.
I'm going to backtrack actually
Yes,
because
yeah.
now I'm remembering new details. I'm remembering all the stuff. It's coming back to me. So that was actually 2011.
Okay.
2012, the year, the Doomsday year, I did another a retake of the Toxic theme.
Okay.
And this was I expanded. I did the concrete pad, the plot of grass next to that, and then a little bit of the gazebo area.
Okay.
And my parents had a shed, a really cheap, thin aluminum metal shed that had, well, a limb fell on it, a big tree limb fell on it.
Yeah.
And we are gonna throw it out. So I was like, can I use this?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever. So I made that kind of like just like a rehash of the Toxic theme. I thought it would be a cool kind of like end of the world, like a bunker, almost like a nuclear bunker.
Yeah.
Going through, experiencing like toxic filled kind of
Yeah.
characters and
Right.
just general spookiness.
Yeah.
That was 2012.
So you had revisited that theme.
Yes.
Does that mean 2013 you went back to another theme that you had redone, or did you start with something?
So I did a graveyard in the backyard, and it was just general kind of creepy, underworld, medieval, gothic imagery.
Yeah.
Nothing too crazy stuck on mine for that year, but that was the year I kind of started doing like prosthetics.
Oh,
and
gotcha. Yeah.
experimenting with like more lighting and painting techniques. So
Right.
Again, tried to like beat myself out.
Especially redoing a theme. It's like you got to bring something new to it, and especially if you had done that long of a time between. You take 5-6 years between. Your skills really change and grow before you do that again.
The following year, my brother had moved out to a house not too far from my parents, and he had a huge backyard and a huge garage. So I was like, "Can I use all of this?" And he's like, "All right, fine."
Yeah.
So I started. That was probably the fastest. It was the biggest build. And it was in the shortest amount of time that I've ever built something.
Yeah.
3 weeks.
Yeah.
I built a haunt, and it was clowns again. But I again tried to one-up myself. I did like a little teaser video. It was the first time I did a teaser video. I did clowns. Yeah. So I tried to do the generic stuff you would see in a clown haunt.
Yeah.
A teddy bear room, giant killer teddy bear, a cafeteria that was a guy selling a giant clown with a meat cleaver.
Yeah.
The idea was my main character. I would always for every year be the usher of people coming in. So you would always see me first, my character, and my character was like he just made people go crazy.
Okay.
So you would see kind of a progression. You started out with a guy who was turning halfway into a clown. So he's freaking out like, "Oh, I gotta get out of here. This guy's making me crazy."
Yeah.
And then you would see the people that kind of like were succumbed to the crazy, and I called it slaughter. But I hyphenated. I put emphasis on the laugh part in slaughter. So it was the slaughter, laugh, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Fun, play on words,
I think I've seen some of like the backlog videos from that slaughter.
Yes.
I don't know if Andrew,
No,
you've
I
seen
haven't.
it. We're gonna have to go through and show
There's
it.
somewhere on
Please.
there's somewhere on my hard drive. I don't think the YouTube page is working anymore. I'm pretty sure they're not. I think I took that one down specifically.
Yeah.
But I had a Facebook page. I would put a banner out on my front lawn every like, September, being like, go to I almost said Deranged. I called it Terror on the Boulevard. Yes,
go to Deranged.
Yeah, I called it Terror on the Boulevard because my parents lived on the corner of Ford Boulevard and Wilson in Lincoln Park. So I was like, Terror on the Boulevard sounds kind of like a catchy name. You know? But every year had a separate name. So it was kind of like how Halloween Horror Nights, but every year was like the Reflections of Fear, Carnival of Carnage. So that's kind of like my homage to what they did and my inspiration.